I'm going to quickly tell you about the genesis and the character of the organic therapy program, and then we'll talk a little bit about why it needs to expand. It's organic in the sense that we do organic growing, but it's also organic in the sense that the program itself comes from people who've been through traumatic experiences and found that gardening is very helpful in recovery. That's me. In Vietnam, I was a medic with the 101st Airborne Division. I roamed from the DMZ down to Da Nang and from the South China Sea to the border with Laos, I think. I may have been there, but it's off the record. I was superbly trained for the job. I went there without any illusions what could happen to me. I knew that John Wayne was an actor. I also knew that we were surrounded by people who were just like us. The only difference was we were the ones surrounded and it was their country. Anyway, I was able to manage the fear there fairly well, and I got through it, but I found out that coming home was really the difficult part. This gentleman up here is William Sims. That's before and after. The picture on the right, William Sims, he's the founder of the organic therapy program. He was walking point with the 101st Airborne Division about a year or two before I got there. An extremely dangerous job. The thing that makes people do that and do it effectively is the love for the people that are walking behind them. Somebody has to do it, and he was the person who was entrusted with that responsibility, and for good reasons. He tends to focus, and he's still walking point for veterans. He started this program, and he anticipates needs, and ever since he got back from Vietnam, he has been going to veterans and letting them know what their rights are. Both of us found some peace coming home by gardening. I gravitated to Virginia, where I planted a series of 4 gardens, and he came home and he putted around in his mom's garden, and it was extremely helpful to him. The gentleman on the left over there is K.U. Wamubu, who plays a key role in this whole project in that he's a veteran who spent his time in the Mekong Delta, and so when he talks, the rest of the guys in the program, formerly homeless veterans, they tend to pay attention because he knows what their experience has been like, and he convinces them that they need to volunteer for this. The gentleman on the right is Mike LaForest, who's a social worker, and he kind of keeps an eye on us and makes sure that we don't run amok. And he was the original garden guru. These are the guys. They're posing for the cover of GQ here. It's in front of our headquarters in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Right adjacent to this building is Vets Place Central that houses 72 formerly homeless veterans, which is a huge, huge issue right now. The group that lives in Vets Place Central are particularly prone to heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, obesity, stroke, cancer of the bowel and prostate. These are all things that are affected by nutrition. And also what I like to call exercise deficit disorder. Some of us may have it as well. The beginning of the year, I looked at our expenditures for food in the mess hall at Vets Place Central for the first 4 months, and it turns out that we're spending 78% of our money on meat. Of course, that raised a huge question. I asked why, and I was told that it's because that's what they like. And in truth, that's what they like. So now, I was a lousy eater as a child. It was all about power between my parents. But be that as it may, I would use the excuse, oh, I don't like that. What I really meant was, I don't know what that is, or I've never tasted that, and they're the same way. So the solution, of course, is to make them familiar with the foods that they're going to be eating. So we get them involved in the organic therapy program so that they recognize a collard green. They recognize kale. They recognize peas inside the pod. And so it's wonderful in that regard. The other thing about The garden, of course, it's a safe place, which is particularly important right now because of some of these chilling statistics. In 2008, the RAND Corporation determined that 1 in 5 veterans suffers from PTSD or depression. I think it's higher. I think it's 1 in 5 at any given moment. But as we know, it bubbles up over time. And I think that the steady stream of veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan right now is going to put extra demands on the system. The organic therapy program, that's a great sign. It was painted by one of the guys who was new to the program. A key characteristic of the program is that it's a self-help program. It's not my program. It's not Mr. Sims's program. It belongs to the people who are involved in it on a daily basis. Diet modification, getting them to try foods that they haven't ever had before, exposure to new foods, reallocation of food dollars from the bad stuff to the good stuff, job skills acquisition, which is a big, important factor for these people, appropriate social interaction and team building and group-centered leadership and management. We do this together. The thing I notice mostly in this photo, these are our first raised beds, is the joy on that person's face right there at having accomplished something. And there's nothing more optimistic than planting a garden because it's making a bet that you're going to be there at harvest time. This is Mr. Sims planting cabbages. That was the first year. Subsequently, we raised that bed up because mercury and lead are a problem in urban areas from lead-based paint, of course. And you can see it's thriving. The peas are just about done here, so kind of mid-season. Everything else is going gangbusters. I've never personally had much luck with peppers, but this guy certainly did this year. It was a great year for peppers. Kids from the neighborhood wander in. It's a great thing because it creates a mix of people. Those are bell peppers, you probably knew that. In spring, we went to the oldest CSA in Wisconsin, Wellspring, which is in Newburg, and learned a little bit about row cropping. And the farmer there is Alyssa Moore, and she could work any one of us to death, and probably all of us, in a day's work. Here are the guys building a small-scale aquaponics system with the help of people from Sweetwater Organics. Here's Jerry and Quinn. They're washing river gravel because you can't use limestone in the system. It's calcium carbonate, and it would upset the pH. And actually what they're doing is they're spraying my feet. This is the Baroponic system. The fish are in the black barrel, and it's a tidal system. So above, we were growing watercress, and there's a couple onions growing in there. Right now, I shut it down for the winter because it's in an unheated space, but it's a great, great learning tool. It teaches them nutrient cycles and what the plants need, what the fish need. This was our garden in November. We had a second crop of spinach in these foreground planter boxes. That tent back there covers our tomatoes, which went gangbusters this year. They were 6 feet 6 inches tall by July, and they were flopping over, so we had to rig up a trellis system that went over the top, and it was a collaborative effort, design on the fly, which is a big component of gardening, as you all know. I put the tent on at the beginning of October, anticipating a frost, and then we added the incandescent lights. They're more for heat than for the radiant quality of them at the first part of November, and we had fresh tomatoes on Thanksgiving, which in Wisconsin is a miracle. So it's about extending the season. We'd like to build a hoop house next year if we can find the funding for it, or a greenhouse. There are lots of ways to engage in the program. Those guys are doing some planning. The gentleman on the compost pile is Jim Godsell from Sweetwater Organics. Every day for a year, he went to a nearby large-scale grocery store, and he picked up 800 to 1,000 pounds of waste fruits and vegetables, and he made a mountain range of compost that we all benefit from when it's time to fill up the planter boxes in springtime. Food preservation is going to be a big issue for us. At CVI, we just completed that permanent housing facility that you see there. It was dedicated on Memorial Day. The front half of the lower level is a commercial kitchen where the Milwaukee Center for Independence teaches food service skills to a variety of people, including our veterans. And we're going to use that second shift and third shift for food preservation when we do our harvest next year. And outreach is also important. There's a Texas Buckskin Academy across the street, and the kids come over and they work in the program. And so we're going to invade the neighborhood with this project. This gentleman right here, I came out of the back of the CVI headquarters one day, and he was hoeing like a maniac. And he stopped and he looked at me and said, "Howard, I just want you to know this program saved my life." Thank you for listening to us. On behalf of all the staff and the veterans in the program at the Center for Veterans Issues, it was great being here, and thank you.